and the scenes from Tamarack, Ottawa race weekend. It is the 51st version coming up this weekend in our nation's capital. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Ottawa. It is great to have you with us. We are getting set for what should be a terrific couple of days. The 10K today, the marathon on the docket tomorrow. And pleased to be joined by Jenna Ladd, who is a veteran of this course, and also two-time Olympian Reed Coolset will be with you throughout the weekend. You think about the great moments, the great events that happen in the Canadian sports calendar. This is one of them. When you talk about a premier event for long distance running, this Tamarack Ottawa race weekend is right there with some of the best in the country.
Yeah, and I know Reed can speak to the elite field and how it feels to be an elite athlete here, but as a local and a business owner and a runner from the city, this is our Super Bowl. This is it. This is what we've built up for, and we're so excited for it.
When you think about the economic impact of this marathon weekend, top 18 globally of any event, any marathon event anywhere in the world. And Reed, we have a very strong field for the elites beginning with the 10K tonight.
Yeah, so our national championships are usually quite competitive, but I think this year in particular it's very competitive. So if I just look down the start list, often there's 5 or 6 like really good women and men, but now we're looking like 10 plus deep of athletes who could really run fast here and challenge for like a podium spot.
A number of Olympians will be taking part in the festivities. Let's take a look at the course track for the 10K that we are going to be featuring tonight, and it is going to go fast. It'll get started in about 10 or 12 minutes or so. It starts at City Hall, right at the corner of Elgin and Laurier. You get that quick left turn, and then down Elgin Street it goes. It is a very flat course, but there is one little area nearing the midway point where it gets a little hilly. To cross the canal, they come back, and then there'll be a ton of fan support along the Pretoria Bridge, and that's such a big part of this. I mean, 85% of this course is going to be flat, and we're going to see a lot of fans, Jenna, who are going to be watching these competitors out there in this 10K tonight.
Exactly, and we're just finishing up one of the largest events in the city called the Great Glebe Garage Sale, which is adjacent to the canal. So we have people at the garage sale all day that are going to migrate over to this event, and it's spectacular to be part of it. To be, 5, 6 rows deep with fans cheering and aid stations. It's whether you're part of the general population or the elite field, it is a tunnel of love and support. It's incredible.
And when you're out there as a competitor, as we see some of the elite runners getting loose downtown right now, it's just so important to run the tangents, Reed.
Yeah, you can add a lot of distance. I mean, especially in the marathon, but even in this 10K, you can add a lot of distance if you're not running the tangents. And by running along the river, the river's not straight. So if you follow the yellow line that you need to when you're driving, you will run quite a bit further. So yeah, you have to look far ahead and make sure you're running the straightest line possible.
Coming down Elgin at the beginning of the race, there's very little elevation. The runners are then going to want to hug the Rideau Canal on a weekend where it has been overcast and cool. Over the years, there have been some very hot, very humid conditions for the runners, but let's take a look at the forecast here for the weekend. This is unlike most Tamarack Ottawa race weekend. 12 degrees right now. There's a little bit of a wind. There's been periodic rain today, and a lot of the runners that we've spoken with over the last couple of days are thrilled about this. They say this is going to be conducive to putting up some pretty good times.
Yeah, there's not a lot of shade on this course. So on a hot evening, especially, approaching summer with the humidity off the canal in the center of the city, it can be a really, really uncomfortable course. So this is ideal. It's really interesting that the city has really come together in providing those aid stations, those cooling opportunities for athletes, and I don't think it's going to be needed this year. So, yeah.
What do the conditions mean for the elites?
They'll chase fast times this year. So typically at a Canadian championship, the main thing is to win, right? Like it almost doesn't. It's what time you run. It almost doesn't matter, unless of course the course is fast and the temperature is nice, and that's what we have today, right? So we have a lot of fast competitors. Not only are they going to try to win to get that Canadian title, but they'll also try to be, getting PBs and also perhaps the Canadian records.
So let's take a look at one of the more accomplished Canadian runners as we glance at the top 10 the top 10 men in this race, we start with Cameron Levins, who's been a veteran at the Olympic Games, just competed in Paris 2024. He leads the charge there, 36 years young. And Levins, I asked him this week, hey, how are you feeling? He said, I am feeling really good, ready to rock. He said, probably the best fitness I've felt in about a year.
Amazing.
Yeah, he said similar things to me. So he's run 27:07 for 10,000 meters on the track. And he feels that he hasn't been in such good 10K shape since then as he is now. He's maybe not quite in that 27:07 shape, but he definitely feels he's been, like he's in very good shape, and he's eyeing that 28:09 Canadian and course record set by Ben Flanagan. So it's in his crosshairs, and he'll be gunning for it.
We had hoped to see Flanagan this weekend. It wasn't going to be the case. What are our thoughts on a time that we could see here today under these conditions?
Well, I think with Cam looking at the at the Canadian record and course record, you can. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out in low 14s for 5K and tries to run 28 flat to 28:08, would probably be his target. Not take off, too much. Like you don't want to be too aggressive in the race. You want to have something to fight off. And at the Sun Run, he already had a really fast 10K this year, and Charles Philibert Thibauteau went out with him, so he knows. There's guys willing to go out with him, even though his PB is quite a bit faster, but he'll have company, and he won't want to risk too much by going so fast.
We'll be talking about him as CPT.
CPT.
For much of the evening. Let's take a look at the women, where you talk about accomplished careers. Malindi Elmore is going to be at the top of that list. You see her fourth there. 45 years young, coming off her third career Olympics. Elmore in the 10K, and this is a race she was the top Canadian in the marathon 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's a really fascinating field, looking at the age differentiation between the women and the level of experience between our up-and-coming athletes versus some of the more established runners, and how we're going to see that unfold, whether the veterans are going to pace it, or whether you're going to see those young runners sort of pushing our veterans.
One of those young-ish runners, Erin Mawhinney of Hamilton, 28 years young. Reed, you've been coaching her for a little while, and Erin said she learned a lot last year in her maiden voyage here in Ottawa.
Yeah, 2 years ago she ran her first really elite 10K, and she was moving up in distance, and she got right in there. She was ninth in that year, and since then she's improved both her. She's run a marathon since then, so her endurance is better, and her speed's still there. So I think she'll be, as a coach, I have to say this, she'll be a very strong competitor in today's race. And then, you also look at Gracelyn Larkin. She's training in Flagstaff, and she's coming here from altitude. She has a 15:21 5K so far this year. That's faster than anybody else in the field in the last few years. I mean, Melindy's run that fast, but it was many years ago. So. 15:21 5K is very dangerous. If she's around the race, she'll be in contention to win for sure.
Towards the bottom of your screen, keep an eye on Ali Ginther. Ginther just won her first half marathon in BC in March. Kind of put her on the map. Ginther's been a little bit of a late bloomer. She's on to the national stage of late. Could Ginther have her moment at the Ottawa Marathon? So look, the 10K, we talk with these athletes and they say, this is about pain. This is about finding a way to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's so much of what this 10K race is, Jenna. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's just a different strategy, a different approach than your longer distance half or full marathon events. It's that sweet spot between the full gas, shorter distance, when you have some of these athletes racing 1,500, 800 meters, or even 5K. The 10K is a tough one. As a marathon runner, I find the shorter distance even more challenging. It's a different kind of breath work. It's a different kind of pacing. It's a different mentality. And there's just so little time to make the right moves.
Reed?
Yeah, it's full gas from the get-go, right? Especially this race, you have a left-hand turn really quick into the race, so you want to get good positioning. So the race usually goes out fast, and then you're on Elgin Street, which has, it's like all the bars and there's people out there, so the atmosphere is there, the course is fast, and you have athletes with different strengths too, right? So, the marathoners will likely want a very honest pace right from the beginning, and that will force the 5K runners and 1,500 meter runners to go with them if they want a shot at the win.
We're about 4 minutes away from the start of the women's Ottawa 10K. The men get started at the bottom of the clock at 6:30 Eastern Time here in the nation's capital. I'm interested to see Elmore today. Again, coming off Paris 2024, and she hasn't raced too much in 2025. And, she paced a half marathon in Nagoya. In March, she was over in Europe. She did the half in 1:11:19, and she said, look, this is part of the preparation for the World Championships in Tokyo in September, but this is going to be a real measuring stick for her in terms of where she is at this stage of the season.
Yeah, so she paced a marathon through halfway in 1:11, but she actually ran 1:10 for a half in Berlin. So that's a really fast time. She was sure she would have liked to have gone under 1:10, but it's still good. And since then, she also raced a 5K on a tough condition. So she's got this, the speed of the 5K, the distance and endurance for the half marathon. So I think the 10K might be her sweet spot. I mean, of course, she won this race last year. So she knows how to win this race. She'll push. Natasha last year was also pushing the pace, but Melindy will want a solid pace for sure, and that's what she'll do. She'll put the pain to everybody else early on.
You mentioned Natasha Wodak, who was scheduled to be in this event. She was a withdrawal with a minor injury. Elmore told us, I want to go out hard. I want to go out strong. A couple of minutes away from the start. What are the nerves like right now? What are we feeling right now as you get set on a cool night for late May, which is pretty unusual?
I mean, I think these women are dialed in. I think they know their plan. They trust the process. They trust their training. They run their own race. It's not about anybody else. They get that tunnel vision. But we'll see how it unfolds. I'm thrilled at the start line in the field and how they're going to get it. Reed, I have a question for you. When you see these women starting up and they're getting ready, what goes through your mind as an elite athlete? Do you feel those sense of doubt? Do you feel confidence, or where does your brain go?
You're almost always feeling doubt. There's always those, and what you're trying to do is trying to get that out of your mind, right? So you're trying to, positive talk, and then try to just get excited, right? You want to be very excited because you know it's going to hurt. If you're not excited and you don't love what you're doing, the hurt's going to get the better of you, right? If you're really excited and you're motivated, you can overcome that pain. So that's what a lot of them are trying to do. They're trying to focus in on, what motivates them, what their goals are, how much they want them, and be prepared to kind of, run through a brick wall.
About a minute away from the start of the 2025 Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend. This is the Ottawa 10K presented by Otto's Ottawa. Arash Madani, Jenna Ladd, Reed Coolset with you tonight and tomorrow for the festivities. It is the Tartan Ottawa Marathon that will get started tomorrow early in the morning. More than 36,000 runners will be taking part this weekend, and now we are set for the beginning of the 10K. Starting at City Hall, a quick left down Elgin Street, and then it'll be off to the races where this track will hug the Rideau Canal. And there is Melindy Elmore, the top Canadian in the marathon in this event a couple of years ago, a 3-time Olympian.
They lit it off so you can see Melindy's taking a quick lead. Salome, who is starting beside her, she'll be up there as well. Laney Marchand was 4th here last year. Salome was 5th. So, expect those two athletes to be up in the mix as well. Caitlin Ayers was 4th here 2 years ago. She's back and in good shape. Caitlin Ayers is on the right-hand side of the screen, white top. Erin Mulwany in the black top. And that's Gracelyn Larkin in the middle there with the Under Armour kind of green and blue. So Melindy, Gracelyn, Kate Ayers, Erin Mulwany, the top 4 right there with Rachel Hanna, who's coming off of Boston, and Melindy Elmore kind of tucked in right behind them.
So in the middle of your screen, Gracelyn Larkin, 24 years old, from Rosso, Ontario. Didn't even take up organized running until grade 10. And from there, her career has just continued to elevate. Got to the World Championships in Eugene, Oregon in the 5,000. Started at University of New Mexico and then went on to Northern Arizona University, a 7-time All-American in the NCAA collegiate ranks.
So at this point in the start, Reed, how important is positioning in the first 5 minutes?
Honestly, with a field this big, and there's not that many turns, like once you get through the first turn, you're really just trying to figure out pacing, right? So if you don't want to lead, you just want to get tucked in behind the people you want to run with, and if you can be tucked in, it's going to save you a little bit of energy, both mentally and blocking the wind. So it's always nice to do that. And then the people who can kick typically will just want to sit in, and the people who want to push the pace will be up front. But yeah, you can see Melindy, like I said, as a marathoner. She wants this to be an honest pace. So even though Gracelyn's right beside her, it does look like Melindy's the one kind of dictating this pace, with Erin Mawhinney and Lanny Marchand. Also tucked in, Lanny being, of course, a former Canadian record holder in the marathon. She's a marathoner as well. Went to the Olympics in 2016 for the marathon.
Mentioned Erin Mawhinney. There she is with the gloves on, trailing Elmore and Larkin. It was a couple of years ago. She said, I remember suffering in her first ever 10K. She said the pace was shocking. And she said after that, Reed, I did a lot more strength training after that, because she said I faded the last couple of clicks, that her form kind of fell apart when she went back and watched the video of it. And so for Mawhinney, in the last couple of years, strength over endurance has been a real point of emphasis.
Yeah, of course, she's really worked on endurance, but those last little bits of performance you're going to gain, through strength training. So, it's the little details, and all these athletes, who are really dialed in are looking at all the little things, your nutrition, your sleep, strength training. They go along with all the kilometers that they put in, every week. So it's hard to tell sometimes from the screen, but I think there is quite a big gap already between Gracelyn and Lanny and Erin. So you see Lanny, Erin, and Salome kind of second, third, and fourth there. And even Melindy's putting a little bit of gap already on Gracelyn. And like I said before, I think she doesn't want Gracelyn beside her in the last 100 meters, right? Melindy has a faster 5,000 meter PB, but that came in about 2007, so she probably doesn't want to roll with someone who's run 15:21 this year.
So pretty flat up until this point, a little elevation gain right there as they come underneath the bridge. And now the runners are going to hug the Rideau Canal. We talked about running the tangents being so key. There are some gradual corners on the Queen Elizabeth and Colonel By, but it's Melindy Elmore out in front, and this morning she was telling us, hey, I may hold back a little on the first 5K.
Nope.
Not so, Jenna.
No, she's feeling it. She's feeling the crowd. I'm sure people are cheering her on. She is a legend here. We know her in the Ottawa Run community. We were calling her name these last couple of years. So having her back here is so special for our community, so special for our athletes, our women, our girls, to see her up front, especially as an established runner. So I know the city's out there rooting for her. We can't hear her, or we can't hear it from here, but I can feel that energy, and I know it's going to be sitting with her as she's really, really pulling ahead here. It's incredible to watch. Quite a strong lead to start. It'll be interesting to see if it can be held, but I think with her skill and talent and experience, it's in the wheelhouse.
What a decorated career it has been for Melindy Elmore, the three-time Olympian, got onto everyone's radar way back when. Shoot, more than a couple of decades ago. She was a student athlete at Stanford University, became the record holder down there in the 800 and the 1500 meters. In those days, Elmore's dreams were to be a middle distance runner at the Olympic Games. Qualified for Athens 2004 in the 1500, and the dream became a reality. Canada Day 2004, Canadian Track and Field Championships. Melindy qualified for Athens. And then life took over. There was parenthood, retirement, but Elmore got back into running. She started first with the triathlon, figured that would help with fitness and postpartum recovery. The next thing you knew, Elmore was getting into long course triathlons, even the Ironman. And after baby number 2, that's when Elmore made the big move in her career. She got into marathon racing. It was in 2019. Melindy raced in her first one. And the next thing you know, back-to-back Olympic appearances. We're about 8 minutes away from the men getting underway. And there's a look at Andrew Alexander, the 2024 national champion in the 10,000 meter on the track. So we're going to take a look at the men in about 8 minutes time as they get set, as Melindy Elmore right now has the advantage on the women's side. What are we looking forward to on the men's side, guys?
Yeah, well, I would say, remember the first names they put on the bibs too. So it was actually Andrew Alexander Maxwell. Oh. Yeah. The men's race, I think we're going to see something similar to the women, where Cam's going to go, the marathoner is going to go real fast, but I expect CPT to join the fun of Cam pushing that Canadian record pace.
Just to finish the thought on Elmore, 2019 she ran her first marathon, clocked at 2:32. A year later, got that down to 2:24.50, which broke the Canadian record by a couple of minutes. Finished 9th overall at the Tokyo Olympics just a few years after starting as a marathoner, and then she competed in Paris again last summer. What a career it's been for the 45-year-old from the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia.
She looks so smooth. I wish I could look that great running at these speeds, but she looks effortless. She looks comfortable. You can tell she's working, but she's definitely hit her stride, and I wish for her that it stays just as smooth throughout, especially when you get into those corners, when you get that tiny, tiny little uphill on those turns. It's not much, but you never know. It could make a difference here.
Yeah, she definitely looks smooth. I would say, she's pushing a fast pace, but it's also very well within her capabilities. So she's an expert. She knows what she's doing. She's pacing herself really well to make sure she has a strong finish. She can stay on this pace for a long time. She needs to do this race in order to punch her ticket for the World Championships. You need to run a national championship. So, she's here kind of checking that box. But, if you come to national championships, of course you want to do your best, and you don't fly across the country just to, participate. She's going to test her limits, and this will be really good information for her to go back to her training and see how she felt in the 10K. Is speed lacking? Is endurance lacking? Which one does she need to work on a little bit more ahead of the Tokyo World Championships this year? So it gives you a lot of, there's a lot to learn from. It gives you a lot of data points too.
She said she focused more in the winter and spring on faster running, breaking up marathon blocks, some back-to-back workouts. What can that do for you?
Well, I think at Melindy's age, it's something that, her endurance isn't going to suffer as a 45-year-old as much as her power and her speed. So if you don't want that to disappear, you have to, maybe pay a bit more attention to it. It probably takes a bit longer for her in terms of like weeks and months to get her speed down. And if she can work on that over the winter and then not have to focus on that as much while she's doing her final preparations for a marathon, that would be ideal. So, Graham is her husband and her coach, and as he was also 9th in an Olympic Games in the 1500. So, they're two very smart people, and they're doing things the right way, and it's very, I guess, scientific, but also having a lot of fun with it along the way.
Special hello to the whole family watching back in BC. Husband Graham, 6-year-old son Oliver, who Melindy tells us is a really good athlete. Charlie's 10 years old, and Melindy's like, LA's kind of on the radar, but I just know Oliver and Charlie are going to be involved in so many things. It's a year-by-year deal right now for Elmore as she decides what's next in her career. This is a really nice part of the track. This is Ottawa. This snapshot really captures it along the canal, doesn't it?
We are passing the Lansdowne Stadium, which is where our Red Blacks play. We have a lot of events. There's a huge yoga festival happening here next week, just adjacent to where Elmore is running right now. This is, such a beautiful, outstanding course. And while the athletes are focused on their performance, they are really blessed to have the city and all these scenes and sites and historical parts and community members coming out of their houses here. You can see them on the side of the course cheering. So it is really an outstanding course, and we're just blessed to I'm going to repeat it over and over. We're just blessed to have it. We're happy to be here. We're happy to have these athletes here, and we hope that they notice it along the course as well.
About 3.5 minutes away from the men's 10K getting involved, and look at the lineup behind. Thousands of competitors getting set for the 10K, but these are the elites, where some of the top runners in this country are going to compete.
Yeah, I see, Thomas Nobbs, Ehab El Sandali, Jeremy Kugler. He's got the yellow and black. He was third here last year, so he's a very tough competitor. He's been top 3 at national championships before. Max Turek beside him in the purple. He's an up-and-comer. He's had really good training lately. Beside him is Ben Preisner, Olympian at the marathon. He's run a 2:10 already this year and qualified for the Tokyo World Championships. So he's just kind of getting back into it. His sun run wasn't as strong as a couple of the other guys on this line. Right beside him is Andrew Alexander, who did have a strong sun run. Beside him, Cam Levins. Cam obviously is the North American record holder. So there's not many Canadians that actually hold a North American record in track and field, and he's maybe one or two of them. So he has the 2:05:38, I believe, in the marathon. So he's super fast, and he had a good run at Sun Run. So that was his first race since the Olympics, just last month in Vancouver. So we didn't really know what to see. He was a bit injured after coming off the Olympics, and he's back where he wants to be. And so that was a really strong run. Andrew Alexander was 28:51 there. Lee Waselius, he is a vet in the area. He has the white, black, and green kind of tricolor top. And then CPT, Charles Philibert Thibodeau, is in the New Balance kind of orangish yellow singlet to the right. I expect him to go out with Cam. Charles he's got really good range. He's got the fastest 1500 by far in this field, and I think he's run 13:10 so far this year over 5K. So he's got the tools to go fast. Beside him, you see with the Laval singlet, that's PMC, Philippe Morneau-Cartier, and he's a 2-time U-Sport cross-country champion. And he actually finished, even though his 10K PB might not be that fast, he was 41st at the World Cross Country Championships a couple of years and beat a lot of these guys on the other Canadians who have faster 10K times. So he's more of a cross-country runner, but every once in a while you'll see that cross-country prowess come around to the roads. And then Thomas Broach with a Thunderbirds singlet beside him. He also ran 2:10 for a marathon this year.
The Ottawa 10K presented by Otto's Ottawa, part of 2025 Tamarack Ottawa Race Weekend. The women about 15 minutes into it, Melindy Elmore with the lead. And now the men's 10K about to get underway from City Hall in our nation's capital.
So it's a huge race. Because this is the Canadian Championships, there are a lot of elites here in the 10K. Arash and I were in the technical meeting this morning, and there was there was standing room only. Like it was packed. So it's a little unusual, but to have this many elites, but because it doubles as the Canadian Championships, everybody wants to be here.
And it is one of my favorite scenes is to watch the general population chase those elites. You know, there's a lot of people in the community that have high hopes. They may not have that designation, but are pretty close. So I think it's a little extra incentive for these men to get going when having, you know, Dave from down the street, he's chasing you, he's on your tail. So it's pretty incredible to be able to, you know, run side by side with them if you have that opportunity.
The only competition on the right side of your screen for Melinda Elmore is the traffic, or the vehicles. It is the veteran Canadian out in front. She has a comfortable lead of well over 800 meters. We will be keeping an eye on Elmore and company.
Yeah, I believe you can see Gracelyn Larkin in the background.
Lurking.
Yeah. It's hard to say. Sometimes I like to count the seconds on the clock if it sticks around,
Yeah.
but I'm going to guess she's about 10 seconds back right now.
I've got the splits here, and I've got Elmore splits as 3 minutes per kilometer, expected finishing time 30 minutes.
I don't think that's.
I don't think that's
right.
accurate either. That's sometimes the tracking is a little bit off.
So usually the women have won this race in about 32:50. That is around. She is right around
Yes.
the 5K mark over the bridge. So I'm going to guess. She's more on like 32:45 pace.
I would agree with you. That is it. So if you are watching from home and you are tracking splits, historically, sometimes the tracking app will only register at certain points. There are different calculations for it. So just keep your eyes on your runners and be patient with it as the app slowly picks up everybody's checkpoints along the course.
So let's focus in here on the men. Let's go single screen here, Dave and Charles, on the leaders of the men, as we tell you a little bit about who to look out for this evening. On the far left is Cam Levins. We mentioned him, the veteran, the Olympian. He said, look, I want to go out fast. I want fast times too. He said it's probably right now my best 10K fitness since I recorded my personal best 10 years ago.
Yeah, he's in great shape. Like he proved that already with a second place at the Sun Run. So he was second to Sam Atkin, who's from Great Britain. So he's not in the picture today. Kieran Lum was up there as well as CPT and Andrew, right? So you see CPT is an Olympian. Ben Prizer is tucked in there right in between CPT and Andrew Alexander, also an Olympian. So you have 3 Olympians in the top 4 right there, followed by Max Turek and Jeremy Kugler. So yeah, all of these guys they're committed to this fast pace that Cam seems to be leading, and in fact, Andrew Alexander seems to be going shoulder to shoulder with him right now, so not backing down. And Ehab El Sandali is also just off that pack. He's run 13:25 before, so he's a very talented athlete as well. He got beaten handily by Jeremy Kugler at the spring runoff in April, but he's up there sticking his nose in it as well.
Elmore with the lead on the women's side. We talk about fellow Olympian Levins. He had such expectations for himself at the Paris Olympics, going into those games, but then just before those Olympics, Cam Levins felt something go. It turned out to be an ankle fracture that he didn't even know about until after he got back from Paris. An MRI showed that. There was also an Achilles issue. And you talked about the rest, Reed, that Levins took. He said, I basically sat from August to December just to get myself a good reset. And he said that was just so important for him as he looked ahead to 2025.
Yeah, he was just busy doing physio. That
Yeah.
was about it. At the time, his wife was pregnant. They just had a baby boy 3 months ago. So he's a new dad to Charlie. And so he was just helping out around the house and doing his physio exercises and waiting patiently until he did a bit of Alter G training, and then I think he wasn't really running on solid ground until December. Yeah, so he's come a long way since December, which isn't surprising because he is such a talent.
In the green, Andrew Alexander wearing the gloves, 26-year-old from Toronto, Scarborough actually, the national champion in the 10,000 meters on the track last year. What a finish that was. He said, I went into the race, I had a sense of confidence that I wanted to win. In the last 200 meters, he really started to push. He thought he was good in the last 100, and then things got crazy. It was a 3-horse race, and it was Alexander who made the push at the end, and he was able to cross first, and that was a big moment in his career.
Yeah, to win a national championship, obviously, a big deal. He's quite young, so he got that, and he won over Rory, who's an accomplished athlete, and Jeremy Kugler, who's also in this pack, was also in that trio that went right to the line there in BC.
So it looks like the men are a lot tighter in terms of their competition at the get-go than the women were. And is that, Reed, in your opinion, is this more strategic, or is this just more closely contended in pace? Are they more evenly matched out, or each having a great day together? What are your thoughts initially in these first 6 minutes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know for sure, but if you look at the women's field, right, as far as like recent Olympians, it's really just Melindy versus on the left side, you're looking at the men's. Charles was at the last Olympics. Ben Preisner was in the last. He was at the Olympics, and so was Cam. Right. So you have. It's a bit deeper as far as like what these guys have done lately, and then also too maybe the men aren't as smart as pacing.
Yeah.
Time will tell, but can all these guys hang with Cam? Maybe they think they can. Maybe the women are smart and they know that they're not going to hold on to.
Let's go with that theory. I'm going to champion that theory.
They might not. They might know. Okay, Melindy's in really good shape. She's going to push a really big pace, and I don't want to blow up today. Maybe the men are just willing to risk that a bit more. So yeah, time will tell. We'll see.
The men haven't reached the canal quite yet. Elmore, as you can see, is along the water, and the wind can be a little weird on the canal, can it, Jenna?
It can, yeah. It can be one of those situations where it feels like you're running into the wind in one direction, and then you turn around and you're still running into the wind. So there are, as we approach Dow's Lake and we approach that open space, the wind starts to get a little bit more aggressive. It starts to cool down over the water. So they will get an uphill. They will get a little bit of that crosshairs off the canal, which will create that cooling effect as they go up and down over the canal. But it is a nice and interesting spot.
I'm counting seconds between Melindy and Gracelyn here. It was 10, and now it's more of like 7 or 8. So she's hunting her down. Gracelyn is hunting Melindy down right now. It's still, I would consider that a comfortable lead that Melindy has, but with almost 10 minutes of running, it's close enough that I wouldn't count her out. So it could get more interesting. We'll see.
There's a little bit of elevation here, and then it's going to be flat for the home stretch of this race. And it was yesterday that Larkin told us, look, I'm excited to put myself in a good situation in this race, in this competition. She said since college, now 24 years old, Gracelyn said, I'm learning to be confident in racing situations against pro athletes, and she's doing exactly all of that here tonight.
Yeah, she's done a great job of just keeping herself in it. Maybe Melindy did have maybe she surged early on to get that lead, but certainly Gracelyn's hanging in tough and giving herself a good shot at this. And you can tell the women are running the tangents because they're not following that yellow line. So that yellow line is there to keep traffic separated. It has nothing to do with the runners. And sometimes you'll see runners sort of follow it, and it's not the fastest route. But these women are looking ahead, and they're getting the fastest, the shortest line from point to point.
And as they start to crest here to that turning point, things will shift for them as well as they start to see the field on the opposite side. So you get, the general population and pack start cheering you on, and you get to see that turnaround towards the finish line and get to see your competitors behind you. So maybe seeing a little mental shift. And it looks like that gap is closing even more.
It's down to 3 seconds
now,
yeah.
Wow.
So I'll just look at a sewer gate.
Yeah.
and then look at the clock above it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they're running side by side in the next.
Elmore has visibly slowed down. You can see it looks like some fatigue is setting in.
Here comes Gracelyn Larkin of Rosso, Ontario, and she is about to take the lead over Melindy Elmore. It was Elmore who led for the first 25 minutes of this race, but now with 3.5 or so kilometers to go, it is Larkin who has taken the lead. She ran the 5K in April in Boston. She's had a couple of indoors throughout the spring, and now Larkin has taken over from Melindy Elmore.
Yeah, Larkin definitely has the speed right now. So Larkin, she ran 8:53 this year for 3,000 meters, right, which is quite fast. Melindy ran 8:51 for 3,000. I was actually at that race. That was back in 2006.
Wow.
So,
and you remember, yeah.
So, yes, like, you know, we're talking about speed. Like I said, like, Melindy did not want to see Graceland beside her this far in the race, and here she can, you know, show like just how fit she is lately. And she's, like I said, she's training in Flagstaff, and she's focused on these shorter distances, right? Where Melindy still has, you know, her main focus being the marathon. And it looks like that was the, I don't know how to say it, like the death blow going by her there. Graceland does look really strong, and Melindy's hanging in tough, but, you know, definitely following her now.
Larkin has only been running for 9 years. It was when she was 15 years old in high school in Bracebridge that she started running cross country with the outdoor track team in high school. She said it was just for fun. She ran for the school team, then joined the club team, and she just got hooked with it. She said, I really enjoy how difficult it is. She told me yesterday, I really like learning how much I can do, how much I'm learning about myself in being out there. And one of the things that Larkin talked about, and I think this is really interesting, she said, I try not to stress myself out there in race conditions anymore. I'm trying to stay calm. And now what could be one of the most important races of her young career right now, she has a PB of 32:32 in the 10K. The final 5 minutes may be so critical in making sure that she keeps her composure down the stretch here.
Well, she definitely looks composed, so she's doing a good job. She looks relaxed. I think she's done a good job of pacing this race. And then in the far shot there, you could also see third and fourth place we haven't seen for a while. So Salome is in third, and Erin Mawhinney is in fourth. So that's what the top four look like on the women's side right now.
Let's take a peek over to the men's side where Cam Levins continues to be the leader. There are 13 minutes gone by on the men's side.
They're still pretty tightly knit, but they are starting to separate a little bit, similar to what we saw earlier on with the women. But we'll see here, especially as they start to build into the canal and get on those main nice flat stretches where they can see well ahead of themselves. So it'll be an interesting evolution, and as we just noted with the women, you never know. Things shift, things change quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Cam is still pushing that fast pace. He looks very much in control, and as I thought, CPT is right there with him. He was going to give it a go, and just like we saw at the Sun Run, Andrew Alexander. So Andrew Alexander and Charles were really close in the Sun Run. They were both running under 29 minutes as well. Max Turek is sitting there in fourth place, and Max and Andrew Alexander have a pretty good history of battling back and forth. They've had some close races over the years as well. So all these gentlemen know each other fairly well, and you know, they know when Cam is on, he's very tough to beat. But you know, they're also not giving him an inch either, right? They want a Canadian Championships for himself.
Yeah, they're in second place. Charles Philbert Thibodeau, the CPT as he likes to be known, twice an Olympian, Rio and Paris, one of Canada's fastest in the 1500 and the 5000 on the track. This event is a bit of a bucket list for him. He's going to head to the World Championships in the 1500 in the fall in Tokyo. But he was honest with us. He said, look, I'm done at the end of this year. I'm super done, he said, in what's been a very decorated track and field and cross-country career.
Yes, yeah, he's done it all. And he's been doing some really cool races. He was at the Grand Slam track race in Jamaica earlier this year, mixing it up with the best mid-distance runners in the world. He actually had a really cool Japanese powder ski trip that I was like tracking to. I was quite jealous of. But yeah, he does lots of cool races. He often trains out of France, doing a lot of European races. So to to run here in Ottawa is special for him. He just really wanted to like check off the boxes of a bunch of races that he hasn't done in the past and that he knows he's going to have fun at. So this was one where he doesn't have to travel far to, and although he did come from Flagstaff, but he's not too far from his hometown, and he can rip with the fastest men in Canada.
Meanwhile, on the right-hand side of your screen, Gracelyn Larkin of Rosso, Ontario. Reached the World Championships in the 5,000, got the last-minute call. She said that was huge in my career. Came into this 10K and said, I'm excited to put myself in a good situation. She eclipsed the 9K mark at 29:35. She's just over 31 minutes here. 32:32 is her personal best. She trailed Melindy Elmore for the first 3 quarters of this race, but now it's Larkin who has turned it up for the final push of this Ottawa 10K presented by Otto's Ottawa.
So as these women here are turning the corner, you know the finish line is near when you start to see the gates. So there is a barrier between the general public and the finish line, and that is where you know that the end is near. You can hear the roar of the crowd, you can feel it, you can see it. That is where you'll see those final heels start to kick in, and those people chasing those personal bests or chasing those records.
7 times an All-American in college. She wrapped up her university career at Northern Arizona, a real powerhouse in NCAA track and field. She remains in Flagstaff. Larkin trains in altitude to be ready for moments like this.
There's those barriers. She's there. And you can see that close race for 3rd and 4th just behind. It looks like it's going to be a race to the finish.
Yeah, we got Gracelyn looking really good here, representing the Under Armour team up in Flagstaff, and then Melindy with her Saucony kit. She'll be coming in the screen really soon as well.
The biggest win of Gracelyn Larkin's young career, champion of the 10K in Ottawa in 2025.
Incredible. She really earned that. She was smart, she was strategic, she deserved that win.
And you know what? Melindy ran a very, if you look at the time right now, she might just squeeze under 33 or be she's pretty much a very similar time as she was last year when she very similar time actually that Gracelyn ran, like 32:50 was what she ran last year. So she was not far off of what she did last year, which is great. That's Salome. I think we missed Erin Mawhinney.
We did just miss
3rd.
her.
So Salome 4th. Lanny Marchand was 5th. She was 4th here last year. And then here comes Rachel Hanna. So Rachel was 29th at the Boston Marathon not that long ago. So for her to come back after Boston and come a 6th place finish here was a very strong finish from a quick turnaround. So there's Rachel Hanna finishing.
Hanna finished 3rd in the Ottawa Marathon last year, was the top Canadian at 2:48:03, opting to run the 10K this spring.
Yeah, and right behind Rachel Hanna was Kate Ayres. So you can see her on the screen, kind of bent over, but Kate coming in from Victoria. And now we're back on the men here.
Before we get to Levins, who's leading the men's race, how about the strategy by Gracelyn Larkin?
Amazing.
She trailed, she stayed in the hunt, Elmore had a sizable lead, but then she continued to lurk and get closer and closer. And then in the final 3 or so kilometers, she went for it.
Yeah, it did look like she paced herself really well. I mean, obviously she won the race, so she did. I don't know the exact splits. Did Melindy go out really hard, or did Gracelyn more like hold back? I'm not sure, but it was a tactical win for sure.
You got to give it to the age difference between the 1st and 2nd place, and that
21 years?
Amazing, incredible, and we've got a nice up-and-coming athlete too with Gracelyn, and it will be amazing to see her back here and attempting even more records in the next couple of years.
So Gracelyn would have been 3 when Melindy was at her first Olympics.
How about that?
Yeah, and Melindy should be, coming in 2nd. Someone 20 years her junior is incredible.
Passing the 20-minute mark on the men's 10K, it's Cameron Levins. leading Charles Philpert Thibodeau, the 1-2 here in the 10K. You know, Levin's talking about a veteran who's been around for a while. I asked him, I said, you know, what motivates you at this stage of your career? And he said, I want an international medal, either at the Worlds or at the Olympics. He said, that's what I'm chasing. And he said, I'm hopeful to run even faster. 16 or so weeks to go to the World Championships. Marathon build begins next month in the lead up to Tokyo. But Levin still has his sights set on bigger things moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't far off of a medal at a World Championships before in the marathon, and he's got the North American record, as I said before. He is the caliber of athlete that can medal at a global championships like the Olympics or the World Championships. But the Olympics, you know, his two Olympic marathons didn't go the way he wanted to. So I'm sure that is probably a bit bigger on his list to hit.
Yeah, I asked him, is LA on the radar? He said, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely is. And he's changed some of his training. He's changed his strength training. He's got a new strength coach. And he said he's doing some blood flow restrictive training, a way to get a decent impact on the body without necessarily having to get under the bar.
Interesting.
Yeah. As a strength coach, I'm aware of those, you know, different strategies and different approaches and schools of thought on how we get our athletes faster, how we, you know, manage differently with different body types. So that is a fairly more modern approach to this. So it'll be really interesting to hear his feedback over the next few months or years on if the efficacy of that type of training.
Levins and CPT, the two veterans in this men's 10K.
So I was talking to Charles earlier today, and I asked him, what's your tactic going to be, knowing that Cam's eyeing a low 28-minute time if things go well. And Charles said he thinks his best chance to be second is just to go with Cam, even though, of course, he's going to try to beat Cam here. He's just hanging on, but he also just felt that he's better off doing this than he is hanging around with the likes of Andrew Alexander and Max Turek and trying to outkick him at the end. He'd rather that gap. And so actually right now we're seeing, is the first time I've seen this in the race, is Charles is actually overtaking Cam Levin. So I don't know if Cam's feeling it, feeling a bit tired, or is Charles just feeling really good and put a little surge in.
It looks like his stride is longer and it's like lengthening a bit, but I mean, we're seeing it from the side now instead of from the front, but he looks like his stride is just a little bit longer. And maybe that's making a little bit of a difference at this point, but
I don't know.
You know.
I really hope Charles does really well on the roads and decides not to hang him up and to keep going after some good 10K half marathons, maybe move up. But I mean, he's obviously trying really hard. You can see it in his face right now. He's determined. But he probably smells a bit of blood here and just wants, to put it away now instead of have it come down to the last 100 meters. So he's pouring it on, and he looks really strong. As much as he's hurting, he does look very strong, and he's put a few seconds on Cam in a pretty short period. So
definitely.
He's going for home here at about 24 minutes into the race. He probably still has another 4 minutes of running. And these next 4 minutes are going to hurt, and they're going to hurt a lot.
Charles Philibert Thibodeau, CPT, the veteran. The gap is widening ahead of Cam Levins. He told us today, look, I want to make this a fast race. I want to be in the low 28s. At 6K, they were running 248. At 7K, 248. At 8K, 258. He's going to be right there in that low 28 range if he's able to keep this pace.
And you're seeing him, adjacent with the general population here, so he is getting all of that energy from them. He's getting all those people cheering and jeering him on, so that's only going to encourage that pace to stick.
It's right up there.
Wow, that's a really big lead in a short time. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know if Cam is hurting or if Charles is really pouring it on, but you can tell there's no doubt that Charles is still running very fast. I don't know if he picked it up from the pace, but he's going for a good one, and I'm not sure if he's on Canadian record pace or not, but that would be a bit of a surprise, for him to reach all the way up to the 10K on the roads and get that record. It's 28:09,
He's
set
close to
by
the
Ben
end here.
Flanagan.
Yep. He is close. You can see the effort in his face.
Yeah, he's wishing that he can see the finish line any minute now. He's hoping to see that banner and make a run for home, because he knows he's on a good one. He knows he's got Cam where he wants him, and he's fine.
CPT has turned it on. In the last kilometer, he did it in 2:41.
Okay, yeah. So that's a very fast pace. So yes.
The previous kilometer, for context, 2:58, a 17-second difference.
Yep.
As Charles Philibert Thibodeau is in the driver's seat, coming down the final bend of this Ottawa 10K.
And he'll be able to hear that finish line and hear the announcements and hear it. So I'm just so excited for him as he nears the corner here in that final turn.
Yeah, I really like it how the crowd
Yep.
just gets thicker and thicker as you come in this last kilometer, and it's like this crescendo of cheering and noise. It just builds up right to the finish line.
Thibodeau said, "I feel faster is best for me." He's put in a lot of speed work coming into this 2025 season. Again, this is somebody who is a specialist on the track in the 1500 and 5000, twice an Olympian for Canada there. Was right there with Cam Levins through the first 5 or 6 kilometers, and the last 3, it is the veteran in his final season of competition, planned anyway, who is going to win the Ottawa 10K in 2025. It's CPT all alone. The question now becomes whether or not it's going to be a Canadian record this spring.
Yeah.
He's got less than a minute to break that Canadian record.
Gotta light some fire under those feet. We're almost there. Looks like a little bit of a race.
Cam
in the
still
back.
looks strong. So I would say that was all Charles just putting in a very fast surge. You know, Cam looks very strong. He looked a little maybe discouraged when Charles went by him that fast, but now that Andrew Alexander's coming close to Cam is he looks like he's in full flight again, and you know he wants to.
We might
hold
get
on to
this
that second.
record.
Yeah.
This record might happen.
So
He is going for it.
CPT in search of a Canadian record.
And he's run 27:54 on the track. So this
Wow.
this sort of time is not new territory for him.
Amazing.
So here we go. We got 28 flat. He's going to do it by a few seconds. Wow.
A record-setting night for Charles Philibert Thibodeau. He wins the Ottawa 10K in 2025 and does it in style.
There's those women you can see with their fists clutched at their faces in anticipation for their friends and peers. It's amazing for them to stay around and watch them finish.
So Levins finished in second, Andrew Alexander in third. There's a look at Max Turek.
So this is a great run for Max. So Max is a young athlete, 20, 35 or so.
Just had a baby too.
Yes.
Yep.
He said the last couple of years I've just gotten better and better. Was a national champion at McMaster University. But the story today is CPT, who's feeling it from the Ottawa fans. What a run, what a performance.
So Thomas Broach, Thomas Knobs, and now Jeremy Kugler. And here's Lee Weselius.
Weselius, who lives in Winchester, not far from Ottawa. He is a big animal veterinarian. He's going to be one of the pacers tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a few of these guys are going to come back and help pace the marathon tomorrow. Andrew Alexander is another one.
Well, they didn't have enough on their plate today, you know?
Yeah.
So what a night it's been. The two veterans on the men's and women's side led for the majority of the race, but then came the comeback. And first from Gracelyn Larkin, who wins the women's 10K, the 24-year-old from Rosso, and then CPT in grand fashion, rewriting the record books in the Ottawa 10K, will win gold. That was outstanding.
It was. A lot can happen in a quick 30 minutes.
Yeah, I thought those were both really good races.
2:41. Kilometer 8 and 9 for CPT.
It looked that fast.
Yeah, it did.
If you're going to dispatch the North American record holder in the marathon, marathon that easily, it better be with the 241K.
So quickly, just looking ahead to tomorrow, we have two real good marathons coming up on the men's and women's side, and we have a Canadian who wants to make some noise here tomorrow on the men's side, don't we?
Yeah, so Rory Linkletter's coming off of his Boston, 6th place finish at Boston, 2:07. So fast time, top 6 at a world marathon major. And there's only 34 days between Boston and Ottawa. So it's a quick turnaround, but he's motivated, he's got the fire, and he's going to go for it.
We saw real aggressiveness in these conditions. This isn't the usual hot, humid. I wonder what that's going to mean for tomorrow.
I think it'll be cooler to start than it will be this evening. It looks like the rain's going to hold off, but I think the athletes are prepared for it. They're used to different conditions all over the world where they race and they train, but I think it's going to work in their favor. So as long as they stay warm and they're smart about it, I think it's going to be a really, really fun event with some personal records and maybe even some surprise wins.
It is the comeback story. That has been the tale of the Ottawa 10K. Let's take a look at the final results. They are now official, starting on the women's side, where Gracelyn Larkin is the champion of the 10K in 2025. She outlasts Melindy Elmore by 18 seconds in that comeback victory. Lanny Marchand, another veteran, finishing 3rd.
I think they missed a few people here. Erin Mawhinney was 3rd, Salome was 4th, but Lanny was 5th, Rachel was 6th, and it looks like Alex Lucky was 7th. But yeah, it was close enough. There's a couple people missing, but
we'll mention them. Yeah.
On the men's side, CPT, we saw Elmore, we saw Levins, and then we saw Andrew Alexander too.
Yeah, so that one's right. Yeah, Andrew Alexander, then Max Turek, Thomas Broach. CPT, he's maybe not quite as old as by Cam by 1 year, but Cam's born in '89, Charles is in 1990, so they're only 1 year apart. Big difference between the men's race and the women's race there. But I think both the 10K winners, in a sense, surprised me that Gracelyn really, that she won by like that much, and then the CPT ended up, if the record went today, I thought it was going to be Cam. It wouldn't have surprised me if CPT was also underneath the record, but I thought he'd be under the record behind Cam.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. You were wrong.
Yeah, I was. I had the first two right, just in different order.
I'm going to bet tomorrow. That sounds like a plan.
What can this do for Gracelyn Larkin's career?
Yeah, I mean, to have a Canadian championship is really nice. She's young; she'll hopefully just be collecting these as the years go by, and it should open the doors as far as having a good win on the roads, right? So she has a good fast 5K from the track, and now she can complement that with a big road win as well.
Let's take a look at let's look ahead to tomorrow with the marathon. The men's pace is going to be at 2:07. The women at about 2:23. What are we expecting as this goes into Quebec on a pretty flat track for most of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of turns. There's lots of turning, so it'll show the athlete's technical ability to be able to read the course and understand the course based on what they received the information today and the information they'll receive from their coaches and their teams. But I think that overall, there are some parts of the course that are flat, but they feel almost a little bit of a false flat when you look at your pace. So it'll be interesting to see if that affects any of the less experienced athletes or athletes coming off injuries or currently maybe a little bit less trained than they'd like. So I think that's when we're going to see the field split. And as we would see in the general population, that's when we see the real trained, and then that's when we see the athletes who maybe could have used a little bit extra. So I think that may be a little less obvious for the elite field, but Ottawa has a couple secrets, and we'll go over those tomorrow as they come.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the Canadians fare, and the international race. So it's a bit different from our Canadian championships here. We have a lot of athletes from Ethiopia and Kenya coming on that will, really dictate the pace. And Rory's planning on mixing it up with the front group. Tristan's going to be a bit more. Tristan Woodfine will be a bit more conservative, hoping that people will blow up from that first group. And then, the top Canadian women, we're looking at Anne-Marie Comeau and McKenna Fitzgerald. they will also be in sort of like that second pack, but looking for that sort of like top 8 finish amongst the internationals.
Tell us a little bit about these secrets. We'll get into it tomorrow, but what are a couple of things we should know about on this track?
Yeah, so there is a couple points where it does. I know it is, touted as a flat course, but when you're an athlete out there and any sort of elevation, you start cursing the run gods for, having those points of elevation. So there is a little bit of an uphill. There's a war museum in Ottawa where you turn in towards Quebec. There's a slight uphill there, and that's where we see the pack sort of break apart. There isn't any shade in that area. So on a historically hot day, that's where it starts to really get athletes. Also approaching into that Rockcliffe Parkway area around that 35K mark, there is a little bit of hill there. And I'm saying that really generously, knowing that Ottawa is fairly flat compared to some of these athletes coming from BC or Africa. But it can get to you if you're not used to it or if you're expecting, a net flat overall. So those little parts may start to add up for some athletes with injuries or athletes that aren't anticipating just the little bits, the little tiny incline that get you.
Any incline at over 42 kilometers is, at Boston they say Mount Hereford.
Yeah.
That little slope. If you run up it on not a marathon, you don't even think twice about it. But during a marathon, any sort of incline can take the sting out of your legs.
Let's get the men's results back up on the screen if we can, guys, because I think it's a real interesting kind of look at the today and the tomorrow that's going to exist in the 10K. You have 2 veterans in Levins and CPT who finished second and obviously first respectively. But then we saw Turek and Alexander, 2 guys in their mid-20s who are right there finishing 3rd and 4th respectively, and they're not that far off the leaders. It feels like we're starting to see the next generation of Canadian 10K runners, just runners overall, who are about to make their mark.
Yeah, Andrew Alexander's already has a couple good marathons underneath his belt. He ran, I think, 2:13 already. So yeah, Andrew and Max, they're born in 1999. Cam's born in 1989. And I'm born in 1979. So I remember when Cam was coming on the scene, and I just thought, oh man, my days are numbered here, and he's now seeing these guys who are 10 years younger than him sort of coming in, and he's still beating them, but they're improving at a faster rate, and Cam and CPT are more on the let's hang on to this, incremental sort of gains, whereas these young guys can still make big jumps from year to year.
On a cool night where wind was not a factor, we saw a new Canadian record on the men's side and new 10K champion on the women's side, and we are just getting started in 2025's Tamarack Ottawa race weekend. It has been an absolute blast to bring it to you, and we'll be back very early tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, when we get set for the Tartan Ottawa Marathon. So for Jenna Ladd, Reed Coolsat, and our entire Rogers crew, Arash Madani saying so long from our nation's capital. The 10K is in the books. The marathon is going to come tomorrow, where in these kind of conditions, who is going to emerge as the champion in 2025? We will find out then as we say so long from Ottawa. We'll see you tomorrow.